Hey y'all, Daniel Aaron here, your guide to vibrant living. I got an exciting video. I got a couple of responses to some thoughts and criticisms and suggestions. More importantly though, I got the answer to what the problem is these days. And I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, it's not politics, it's not the vaccine, it's not pharma tech, big tech, it's not the pharmaceutical things. First though, you see those trees behind me? Banana trees. Do you notice no bananas on them? Guess why? Somebody stole our bananas. They stole our bananas. Can you believe they stole our bananas? That's the problem. That's the problem these days. The problem is they. Now, being a little bit silly, though I'll make it less silly in a moment as I connect the dots. Stay with me. They is the problem. They are the problem. And what do I mean by that? A few days ago, I posted a video that I thought was, on one hand funny, another hand thought-provoking, and it was a video of a guru-looking dude with long white hair and a big beard, and he spoke in a beautiful Indian accent, and he had a long orange robe on, and somebody had called him a prophet. And I don't know if he's a prophet. Who cares? What's interesting about it is what he had to say. What's even more interesting is what happens in us when we see it. Now, down the street from here, one of our neighbors, probably 2 months ago, something like that, displayed their political preferences, enthusiasms. You know what their purpose was? I don't know. Were they trying to convince other people? Right. So I'm here on Maui in the United States of America. Right. In case you didn't know, we had a big election the other day. It's not over. I know some people said it is over. Well, technically, it's not over. And yeah, more likely it will go to Biden, but there's still recounts happening. We still get the Electoral College meeting on the 8th, voting on the 14th. Some things could happen. It's not yet decided. But you know what? Again, none of that's the problem. What is the problem, though? Our neighbors who posted their political preferences like that a few days ago, their property was vandalized, attacked, right? And the woman whose home it is made a post on nextdoorneighbor.com, kind of a local forum thing, and said, I'm really sad that people did this, that we can't say what we believe in or what we want without people. And it turns out there were a lot of attacks, people driving by screaming at them, throwing stuff in their yawn, obscenities. So when I say they are the problem, what I mean is, so as I started to dig in, I'll come to it, as I started to dig in deeper and people are criticizing me for what they think my opinions are, things that I've posted, and they say, well, you should look at this, and so I'm doing some of that. I'm not political, I don't like arguing, but I want to broaden my perspective, look around, because the one thing that I know for sure is that I don't know diddly squat. Right, and I thought I learned that in philosophy school 30 years ago, the most important thing I learned. Well, I'm learning it on a whole new level, right? For the last 4 years, or the last, up until this past year, I believe so much of what the mainstream media put forward about what Donald Trump was doing and saying, right? And I'm sure he did do some of those things, and he did say some of those things. What I didn't realize, though, and I'm embarrassed, horrified really to admit it, is I just believed a lot of what they were putting out wholesale without considering their agenda, right? And one of the great pieces of this 2020 epoch is that so many people, myself foremost among them, are getting wake-up calls to say, hey, you know what, things are not the way they appear. Right. Again, before we get off point into any topics that are irrelevant to the real problem here, and the real problem, and we'll come to the real solution for you, for me, for people like us who perhaps have some higher level of valuing of spirituality. I'll just put it that way. It's an overused way of speaking, but hopefully that'll be enough for now. As I started looking around, I found, somebody said, well, us over here on the left, and the problem with those anti-vaxxers and, the issue that's happening for the GABA people, is that how it goes? No, MAGA people, and, the issue with the Democrats is, and the problem with so many people are falling for the illusion of this physical world, right? That we are separate. Right? It's my background, in case you don't know me, right? I years and years of consciousness, meditation, yoga, working on the spiritual path, and a lot of parentheses there because that's crappy talk anyway. But so. And I know if some of y'all watching, listening, know what I'm talking about on that level without getting lost in semantics. So if we go with the spiritual teachings across all kinds of traditions that say the truth is we are all connected. The truth is that the physical world, the separations, they're not real, right? They seem real. The truth is oneness. Underlying everything is sameness. The root of all what matters is love. Right? Hypothesis. So if that's the case, if we take that as the case, what would be the opposite of that? What would be the problem or the obstacle to realizing that? Well, of course it would be separation, the illusion that we're different. And there's a dog that lives down the hill, one of our neighbors, and every now and then another dog comes by and they get in a fight, right? And you can hear it, and it is not nice, right? The sound of two big dogs fighting is it's kind of scary. But you know what we don't ever do, and we might go down there, we might break it up, we might spray water on them. They're big dogs, you don't want to get in the middle of that. But one thing we don't do is we go, what's wrong with them? What's their problem? Why are they doing that? Because part of us, humans, high up on the food chain, think, well, that's normal behavior for those more primitive animals, more animalistic beings. Well, thing is, let's be real. We humans, we got a pretty primitive side, right? Somebody stole our bananas, right? Somebody attacked those people's property, right? These are weak crimes, right? Because they're not facing the person. And this is a problem that has been exacerbated in recent times with social media. It's so easy to attack and criticize someone, to type something, either to do it anonymously or from halfway around the world. What's different, though, in the real world, the interactive world, is when we see each other, when we connect, when we don't like the way somebody's doing something, or we feel like they've got something that should be ours. When we're connected, we're less likely to be attacking. It happens, right? It happens, but it's less likely because we've got mirror neurons, because even though there is that animalistic part of ourselves that's very self-oriented, ready to fight, survival, that's primitive, that's basic, there's also a higher part of us, right, that knows the higher truths, that knows that the other person is also us, right? And that's part of what accounts for so many beautiful acts of love, service, kindness. One of my greatest heroes, Martin Luther King Jr., right? And not just him, but one of the main tactics of the civil rights movement from Martin Luther King Jr.'s camp, say, and what was so successful and why he won the Nobel Prize, and on some level why he was assassinated, was non-violent disobedience, right? Civil disobedience. It's saying we're not going to follow an unjust law, and we're also not going to sink to a primitive level and fight an attack. One reason is because we can do better, right? And that's the thing, y'all, we need to do better right now, right? We're in a world that on one hand, on one level, is having some serious problems, right? It's scary stuff out there. It's below our potential for who we can be. And again, this is why I'm sharing this with you, because if you're tuned in here, you've got some idea what I'm talking about. You know that everybody does on some level. Now, you can go back to Gandhi or Emerson, right? And this idea of civil disobedience, which, by the way, could be one that we are in store for. I have a feeling that I may be needing to employ the same tactics soon. One reason for it is because, well, let's not sink to a lower level. Let's reach up to our potential for who we can be, right? Another level, and Martin Luther King Jr. knew as well, is simple strategy, tactics, right? Fighting, in a lot of cases, isn't going to get us what we want. Most cases, actually. Right? So the tactic of civil disobedience was also just a good strategy, but it was not easy. And this is the thing a lot of people don't understand, although it's really obvious if you look around these days. That primitive part of us is easily activated, and some of us more than others, right? I know for me and my family, when I was a kid, we'd play Monopoly sometimes, and it would usually end up with somebody screaming at somebody else, somebody smacking the board, walking away. Why? Because we didn't love each other, because we were horrible people. No, because we didn't have an education. We didn't know what to do when we were upset. Nobody had taught us that. Nobody taught our parents that, right? For some of us, that's been a big part of life these days, and maybe we've gotten a little bit better at communicating when we're upset, communicating when we have challenges, when there's conflict. Maybe. There's still plenty of ways to go. But you know, some people have not had any education in that realm, right? In fact, they've had training that if you're upset, then scream, or if you see something that you think is yours or should be yours, then fight for it. That's the education, that's the modeling, the imprinting that a lot of people have had. So when the civil rights movement started really revving up there, they trained, right? And if you watch, well, it'll come back to me. Anyway, there's a great, Selma is the name of the movie. And you know, some flaws in it, but great movie, shows some insight into the civil rights movement. They trained, right? So what are you going to do when, imagine you're a young black man, a young black woman, and it happened for the white protesters too, where you say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to sit in the back of the bus. No, I'm not going to drink from the separate water fountain. No, I am going to go to this cafe, whatever. And because it's an unjust law that says, no, I am going to do that. And then some big scary person, maybe with a gun, maybe with a hose, maybe with a mace, maybe with a billy club, is going to hit you, spit on you, call you nigger, call you this, call you that. What happens to us if somebody does that to us? Well, kicks in that rage part of us, that primitive part of us, right? If somebody tells us something that we don't like, someone speaks to us in an aggressive way, it's very natural for that part of us to get activated, right? And as soon as emotion, especially negative emotion, goes high, rationality, love, good decision making goes low. You know what I'm talking about. We got a lot of that these days. So they trained. They said, okay, sit in this booth and we're going to role play it, right? We're going to yell at you, we're going to spit at you, we're going to call you names. And it was not easy. It was not easy for those civil rights activists to stay calm in the midst of being attacked, treated horribly. Just like it may not be easy for us these days to check our own emotional reaction to somebody's post, what somebody said, what somebody's displaying as their preferences. Right? It's not easy. I agree, right? I get sucked into it for sure, where I want to argue, convince somebody, tell them they're wrong, exert my opinion. Thing is, we need to do better. And you and I are the ones who can. If we've meditated, if we've done some yoga, if we've had some therapy, well, what's that for, right? We can't have this righteous indignation. The ends justify the means. We need to do better. We can't say, well, they're so wrong, well, I have to yell at them. One, no, you don't. You can model being a higher level of consciousness, love, right? And two, it doesn't work anyway, right? When we do that, what's the result? So y'all, on the one hand, I'm sad. I really don't like conflict. From the earliest days, why can't we just get along? We can, but it's not easy. We don't have a lot of training. So on one hand, oh man, I look around these days and I am sad. And I see just in my local community how much fighting there is, and arguing and denigrating. And of course there's a lot more in the bigger picture of the world, and I'm fairly insulated here on Maui compared to a lot of the inner cities in the US right now and around the world. And on another hand, I'm also excited because this is a calling for us, right? And I'll make it more specific. Check our emotional reaction to what anyone else says or posts. Anytime we, meaning us who have done some work, say, or are standing up for a higher ideal, anytime we are saying they, right? And I know I'm doing it in some way when I say we and they. It's not really we and they. There's a spectrum. What I'm saying is none of us are going to be perfect with it. We need to do more, though, in terms of responding with love, togetherness. And here's my specific challenge to you. Notice and refrain from they, from pointing the finger, from categorizing, whether it's an anti-vaxxer or a Make America Greater or a Democrat or a Republican or whatever categories. There's so much division. We need to do better to create the unity. So one, let's refrain from, catch ourselves sooner in that polarization. Two, when we have lost our emotional response, when we've lost our awareness of love, of cooperation, of unity, well, make amends, come back to it. Hey, I'm sorry, you know what? Because none of us realize everything in the moment. We're all doing our best to evolve. We are all evolving, and we need to help each other out, right? My neighbor who had their property vandalized, some people responded in a way they were feeling empathetic and saying, that's horrible, those people that did that. Well, again, those people that did that are responding because a part of them has been triggered. That's part of what they learned. That's part of their imprinting. And if we put them down for doing that, well, we're doing the same thing. We need to lift them up. We need to help them say, hey, there's a different way of responding to this kind of situation. And we can do that. And this is where my excitement is for the era we're in, because we do have the opportunity not to go back to the old normal. We have the possibility to move forward into a less primitive, a more evolved, a more cooperative, loving, unified world. Will you join me with that? All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. It's getting sunny. I'm going to go have some bananas. No. Yes, I am. There are more bananas in the world. There's plenty. That's the world we live in. Thank you. Aloha.